Hey, this is Jedi Steve, and I met somebody today. This is Harlan, lighting up a Cannabis wellness party pre-roll.
It's delicious and less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
So I'm gonna let Harlan tell you a little about himself, but it was interesting that he deals with death on a daily basis, and that's what his job is. But I'm always open to finding people with different perspective and having a conversation, which is happening in the world, but I believe it's rare. So tell me about who you are and what you do.
My name is Harlan William Pankow Jr. and I'm what's called a removal technician or a removal specialist. And what we do is we are contracted through mortuaries, crematoriums, care centers, the county medical examiner, for instance, just various different facilities that deal with the funeral industry essentially. So hospitals, anywhere people die, at home, residents, anywhere that they die, we transport them. We're kind of like the Uber for dead people. We remove the decedent and we transport it to wherever their final resting place will be, or to sometimes the medical examiner, and then from after he does his autopsy, we'll take them to their funeral home or crematorium, depending on what's going on with them. So we pick up and remove the dead, and sometimes it's in a residence with the whole family there grieving, and sometimes it's in a hospital and there's nobody there at all. Sometimes it could be the side of the road, or out of a lake, or on a pier dock, from, for instance, the Marines that died in the underwater vehicle recently here off the coast of San Diego. Our company was in charge of that. So that's in a nutshell what we do. We are, I wouldn't call it a job, it's a profession. A job anybody can do. This is something that most people wouldn't want to do, probably couldn't do, and it requires a professional, and it's a profession.
So you're reaching out to people that are at a vulnerable time in their life, and you're saying earlier that early on when you were doing this, you were more comfortable being around dead people than people that are living.
No, currently. When I first started, I had a hard time wrapping my head around it, dealing with grieving people that just lost their mom or sister or baby, or whatever. It's pretty intense, and most people in this industry that do what I do they just try to get in and out. It's awkward for most people to be around somebody crying or wailing, or just in that high of an emotional state. It's hard for them to deal with. A lot of times they're not equipped to, so they just go in to get the body, remove it as quickly as possible, and really don't spend a lot of time thinking about the person, which is kind of where I'm different, because I'm a communications guy. I went to school for communications, interpersonal communication, and I'm just kind of you probably wouldn't guess it by looking at me, but I'm a very sensitive person. I'm sensitive to other people, and I try to be leave everybody and everything better than I found it, which is kind of a hard thing to do in a situation like that. So it's not something that everybody in this industry does, but something that I feel gives my job honor, is taking somebody that is probably having one of the worst days of their lives when they lose that loved one, and trying to make it just a little less horrible for them, doing whatever I can, from removing the soiled sheets that they died on, or the COVID thing happened here in San Diego, man, so we taking the extra time to sanitize and use what's called cavicide, which is a chemical that kills everything alive, basically, and just going the extra mile to make sure we're not transporting diseases into other people's houses when we go, because we get 10 bodies to pick up in a day, you don't in a 3-piece suit, I might add. you don't always necessarily have time to, or not time, sorry, the information available to find out whether this person was COVID positive or negative. So you have PPE that you got to deal with, and some people are better at it than others. And to me, I just couldn't deal with, just something as simple as like the wheels of your gurney that you put this body on that had a COVID patient on it, or went through a hospital that had COVID on the floor or whatever, and bringing that into somebody else's home. I take the time between everybody, even though I get less done. So, in my industry, we don't get paid by the hour, we get paid by the body. And, you don't get to do as many bodies when you take the time to sterilize everything properly. And it's just kind of part of the game. We buy our own PPE. We're all 1099 independent contractors. And at my company in particular, everybody I work with, I'm this little guy. I'm 6'2.5", 160 pounds. Everybody else is 6'5", 6'6", 320 plus pounds. And, we've all known each other for about 30 years at least, so we're all pretty tight. We work pretty efficiently together. And something else that makes us stand out in this industry is that, we take the time for the customer. We're there for them. We're not just there to get a body. And we actually care.
And that's so important when somebody's in one of those vulnerable spaces and vulnerable times. There's this book, Blink, written by Malcolm Gladwell, and he cited some research. I think it was at one of the colleges. I was going to say USC, but it was at one of the colleges that they were able to tell that the difference between a doctor being sued and not being sued with taking a bunch of raw numbers was just them spending 3 more minutes with the person, having that bedside manner. And I take that into consideration. It's not that I'm afraid of getting sued in a lot of things that I do, but I think there's like an awesome, important human there. And it's kind of in a different way, but kind of the same essence of what you're talking about in that vulnerable situation. Yeah.
That's definitely.
So at this point, I want to go in. I'm going to stop the video for a little while, but I want to go into more talking about death and the experience of death and your view of death. Did you want to say anything more about your profession before we went on to the next one?
One hard thing about what I do in particular, because I have a tendency to connect with the people that I'm there with that need somebody to kind of be strong for them while they're weak. You know what I mean? Sometimes, it's a case-by-case basis. But no matter how close of a bond you might develop with that person and how good you take care of that loved one for them, that person never wants to see your face again. So, which in a weird way is kind of a cool thing because of COVID, like I get to wear a mask, so out on the streets they might not recognize me, which I kind of appreciate, you know what I mean? But yeah, it just makes it kind of, really hard. You don't want to do your own friends, and that happens too. You go to pick up a fucking friend's mom or dad, and then it's just awkward between you and them in the future. You know what I mean? So there's really a lot of.
It's interesting that I could see how most people would be like that. Tomorrow will be the anniversary of when my father died, and on my birthday, my first birthday after my father had died, which was in November, my dad died in April, I randomly was doing one of my cannabis wellness parties, and I was picking up some potato chips and other stuff for the event. And I ran into Dallas, that was the fireman that I met when my dad was when I rushed over to the house, my mom's house, and my dad was dying. And I looked at my dad saying hi to me from the beyond because I ran into him. He's like, "We remember your dad had died," and I was like, "Wow, he was there when my dad had died, and he remembered me." Yeah, and then also I remembered his name, Dallas. I go, "You're Dallas."
That's awesome. And that's because we're first responders. We're just the other kind. There's first responders that show up when you're sick or hurt or need an ambulance or whatever, the first aid. And then there's first responders when it's too late for that, and that's us, you know. So it's kind of different, you know. A paramedic, a fireman, a removal technician, you can tell really easily who's there because of the money and who's there because they want to give back to society or because they care about people, or you know, it's just you can really tell a lot about a person by how they do their job. You understand what I'm saying? And how that man remembered your name despite the time and the distance and whatever it might be. That's really really special that guy was there, because I bet you your dad probably they probably fought hard for him, you know, to stay alive, you know, and that would comfort me a lot, you know, is that guy cared enough to even know my name and remember my dad. Like, that guy must have tried really hard. You know?
Yeah.
It would bring me some comfort, that's for sure.
And also he knew that he didn't make it when he got to the hospital. Like, there was a lot of attention that, yeah. Maybe he knew, because my mom said that he didn't show any vitals. So we like stayed at the house, and I knew he was gone when the ambulance and everything took away, and that nobody had left with the ambulance. But I knew that. But the fact that he knew that, remembered that 6-7 months later.
So your father died at home, and they left. Then somebody else, not the ambulance, came and took his body.
Well, it was kind of a rush. He didn't all of a sudden die. He, like, when they were rushing, they came and they were trying to fix him. But he went in the ambulance. But the firemen came, and the police officer came, and it was a whole experience. Yeah.
So he died at the hospital. I was gonna say, you might have met a removal technician had he died at home. They'll send one of us to transport him to wherever he's going. You know, likely if you guys knew it was coming, then it would probably be a cremation center or a care center or a funeral home. I
haven't noticed for myself, and I think it's different, but it's the same thing. I consider myself and I'm not trying to responder. So it's a phrase that I came up with, is like I reach people before stuff happens.
That's cool. Or like a pre, what would it be?
Premature orgasm?
Yeah. Premature ejaculation. No, it would be like a pre-crisis intervention or something to that effect.
Yeah. Cool. So we're gonna stop here, and then we're gonna get into more the meaning of life, and we're speaking from our own place, and maybe we'll cite some research and some information from different stuff in our own experience, and hopefully you'll find this useful in some way for wherever you are in your life. Thank you very much, Harlan.